Hey guys, it's Deshi and welcome back to another spell break video. So today we are going to be talking about what I was talking about in the last video, and that is gauntlets. And what I'm mainly going to be talking about is the primary, secondary gauntlets, what they mean, how they will affect you throughout the match, how to choose wisely with each gauntlet that you will get, and especially the combinations that you can do with certain gauntlets. So let's get on straight into the video. So before you even pick what gauntlet that you're going to have, obviously once you start the match, you press the play, whether you're doing squads, duos or solos, or even going to practice just to understand the game a bit more. You will see 6 different gauntlets that you will get in the match, and that will become a bit more easier for you to understand later in this video on which gauntlets that you want. It highly depends on what you want to do and the combinations that you want to do in the match. So there's 6 different classes to choose from. I'm going to explain that later in the video, but we're just going to be focusing on the primary gauntlets. And essentially with the primary gauntlets, you only are able to get the skill levels on that gauntlet itself. Sadly, it will not apply to the secondary gauntlet. So if you want a Pyromancer because you enjoy like the Firefly, and you also want Toxicologist because you like the puddles, sadly you're only able to choose one of them. It's because that's how the game runs. Sadly, I can't do anything about that. The secondary gauntlets is what you get in the match itself. So obviously primary one is the one you pick before the match begins. The secondary one is what you find either in chests or in the little aura that gives you legendary items. Also, to add on, you will get a weak arcane spell which is on your left or your right hand, sorry. So your left hand's your primary, right hand your secondary. Your right hand, without any gauntlets, you get a weak arcane spell. Very weak, is very useless, but if you want to play around with that and try and do a challenge and kill someone with it, go ahead. It's just a basic attack. It has no effect, no sort of special abilities that you can do. You're just throwing your hand with like a pink small orb at the enemy. Now we're going to explain the gauntlets that you will get, and I'm going to be talking about the primary gauntlets only. Secondary gauntlets is going to be mainly talking with the combinations, but for each gauntlet that I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be actually showing you full screen of a visual representation of what I'm talking about, what it means. So it's a lot easier for you guys to understand visually and also to hear my voice. So we're going to start with the first gauntlet that you get in the tutorial so you understand a bit more, and that is Pyromancer. So skill level number 1 is Combust. On direct hits, you ignite targets for 2 seconds, and your fireball explosion radius is over 200 extra percentage. That just simply means once you hit the person, they get burned for 2 seconds, and your radius on the actual hit will be a lot higher, so you hit the targets. Skill level number 2 is Firefly. You are immune to your firewalls, and whenever you actually go through your flame walls, you gain a flight ability for 2 seconds. So once you enter it, you basically get your rune that gives you the ability to fly for 2 seconds. Pyrolysis, your flame wall is an extra 100% damage. You will obviously know that because you'll see your flame wall become blue for 2 seconds, and then you lose that 100% damage afterwards. So make sure you get the direct hit on the enemies with your flame walls to use the pyrolysis effect effectively. Then your final skill level and number 4 is Conflagration. On fireball hits, spawns 4 smaller fireballs. So as you can see on screen, you will see 4 smaller fireballs hit on the ground in like a sort of square formation, so one on each corner. Once you hit the main one on the ground or even an enemy. The next one is Frostborn. Immediately skill level number 1. So all of these you get the first one immediately once you start the match. And for Frostborn, the first one your Ice Lance leaves an icy trail. You and your enemies will get 150% fast acceleration on ice trails. That just means that once you shoot your Ice Lance anywhere, wherever it goes, there'll be an ice trail following it. And you can either use that to get away from enemies or go towards enemies. Bear it in mind that it also goes to enemies as well, so they can also chase you with those ice trails. I'm going to be talking about how to counter that later in the video when I'm talking about the combinations, but for now let's just get straight to the skill levels. Level 2, your Ice Lance hover in mid-air while aiming only for 5 seconds, and whilst you're using your Ice Lance you get to highlight targets while aiming, so they get a red overlay above them, through them I mean, so you can see them a lot easier and you can obviously target them. Bear in mind, the further you are, make sure you aim a bit higher because gravity also affects it. So once you're using your Ice Lance in the air, you'll hover, you go really slow so you're able to attack. Make sure if you like to aim a bit faster, make sure you have your sensitivity increased, because with your sensitivity at the normal how it is, it's really slow, just to let you guys know. Skill level 3 is Tundra, immune to flash damage while casting Flash Freeze, and the Flash Freeze duration is doubled. So I'm going to be talking more about that later in the video on why that is really powerful. But once you use your Flash Freeze, you won't be frozen inside, only the enemy that's in there, and the duration is 100% extra, so bear that in mind. And then Ice Prism, Ice Lance overcharged for 0.5 seconds for 35% damage. As you can see on screen, once I did the overcharge I got the extra 35% damage, however I didn't do that, I lost that damage of course. Now we're going to move on to the next one called Conduit, and the initial level is Potential Energy. Lightning bolts, 1 damage for every bolt until you stop casting, max is +5. So with this attack, it's not a constant damage, so you're not shooting lightning all the time, you're shooting lightning bolts constantly at your opponents, and every time you hit that you will gain extra damage, only 1 extra damage. And obviously with your mana you can't shoot it constantly, so you won't be getting that extra damage all the time. It does say +5, but I noticed that I was able to get only like +4, 3 or 4. It also depends how much money you have in the beginning. Overload, on cast a lightning strike you gain 1 rune charge, max of 1. Therefore if I have like the teleport rune, the dash rune or the featherfall rune, once I use my lightning strike I get an extra 1, so I can teleport twice, flap in the air twice, dash twice, etc, etc. That's what that means. Power surge, on cast a lightning strike you don't consume any mana at all, so it allows you to use the lightning strike and also attack enemies without you worrying about losing mana and then getting disadvantage. Final one is Secondary Strike, lightning strike +4 strikes. So with your lightning strike before it's just 1, once you get to level 4 you get 4 + 4 strikes, in total of 5. So you can combine that well with maybe Tornado and your lightning strike to make sure it all hits the enemies. Bear in mind that with lightning you can apply shock. I'm going to explain what that means later because it goes really well with some of the combinations I'm going to talk about. 4th one is Stone Shaper, and Stone Shaper on the first initial level your max armor is +20. On cast Shockwave with under 20 armor you gain 5 armor. So this is just another way of using Shield Potion. If you don't have one, just cast your Shockwave just to get 5 armor, just to add 20 bit more armor. Therefore when people hit you, they're not going to get rid of your health, they're going to get rid of your armor first. Level 2, on cast with Shockwave you crash to the ground. So when you use your Shockwave in the air, you can go straight down and crash to the ground and then use your Shockwave, which causes an eruption of fast moving earth along the ground. Accretion at level 3, boulder size grows as it flies, so if you throw it in the air, the longer it stays in the air, the larger it grows. There is a limit, it doesn't keep on growing, there's just a limit. It grows, I believe, almost twice its size, and then it stops growing. And then the final level is Avalanche. Max boulder full charge is +1. That just means you're able to throw one, wait like a second maybe if you want to throw another one, not just yet, and then throw another one without being affected by cooldowns. So if you miss one, you could be likely to get another one if you're lucky. Second to last one is Tempest, and the initial level is a Wind Surge. On your basic attack, which is Wind Shears, if you hit on the ground, you will basically levitate up in the air. So you can use this as a way of flying in the air rather than using your X button. It's a lot quicker, honestly. And if there's enemies below you, you can attack them as well. Level 2 is Updraft. You're immune to tornado pull, so if you enter your tornado, you will not be pulled in. However, if you are in your tornado, you'll be launched in the air, giving you height advantage against the enemy. Squall at level 3. In the air after 1 second, your spell damage is increased by 20%. And in the air for 1 second, again, incoming damage is reduced by 10%. So in the air, not immediately after 1 second of being in the air, if you're attacking someone, you gain damage reduction and spell damage. And then the final level at level 4, in the air after 1 second, sorcery cooldown speed is increased by 100%. So if you do lose all your mana, you actually gain that mana twice as fast. Not immediately, but it's twice as fast. And then finally is your Toxicologist. At the initial level, at level 1, you gain Viscosity. If you hit your Toxic Spray, which is your primary fire, on the ground, it leaves a sticky toxic puddle. You can use that really good for certain secondary gauntlets to create a nice effect. Level 2 is Vanishing Mist. Immune your toxic clouds, so once you enter it, you don't gain damage like what other people would do. However, which is a really nice effect, once you enter your toxic clouds, you will dash, and you also gain invisibility for 3 seconds. So obviously no one can see you. And this goes well with the third level is Outbreak. Once you're invisible, you gain 75% toxic damage. Bear it in mind, you can only attack once until you're revealed, or you wait 3 seconds and then you're revealed. So you only get one attack that is 75% extra damage, and then you're back to your normal attacks. If you want to have a rune that gives you invisibility, so you have 2 attacks that gives you 75% toxic damage, likeliness of you killing the person a bit more. And then the final level is Spreading Sickness. Toxic Clouds gives you 2 extra clouds, bigger explosions, bigger radius for you to hit the person. So that is all with the gauntlets. This can go really well with talents, but I'm going to be talking about that in another video because I know this video is going to be quite long. So now we're going to be talking about the combinations that you can make, whether that could be Pyrolysis with Tempest or Stone Shaper with Frostborn, and we're talking about every single combination you can make. And I'm going to be starting with the Frostborn and then listen everything you can make with it. Frostborn, I might do the same one just so you guys are clearly aware that it still works. However, with certain primary gauntlets, once you have it with your primary gauntlet, you will lose certain combinations, and that is because you lose the skill levels. So we have to bear that in mind, and I'm also going to be talking about which combinations do not work because of that, and which combinations do not work in general. So let's skip on straight to that. So we're going to start with a Pyromancer, and then what I did first was the Pyromancer and also the Stone Shaper. If you shoot your Pyromancer, your basic attacks on the ground, it will leave a fire that stays there for a couple of seconds. However, if you use your Shockwave and it goes through the flame, it will leave a lane of fire. That just means that wherever the Shockwave goes, the lane of fire will follow, and you can make multiple of them and it will not burn out. If you use multiple shockwaves and it makes sure it hits the fire, you will have fire all over the place, giving a little pressure to the enemy. Next, if you throw your boulder full on any sort of fire, whether that be the fire that is on the ground or the flame wall, the boulder will be set on fire. That just means that people will get the initial impact damage from the rock itself and also be set on fire, because once it hits the ground, the floor that it got impacted on is set on fire. That just means they get burned and the initial impact as well. Next, we're going to be talking about fire and frost. Nothing is really special about this combination, but the frost just simply extinguishes fire with both abilities. Nothing really special. So if you are against someone with fire and you're frost and you want to get past, just simply use either your flash freeze or your ice lance to get rid of the fire. It's really simple as that. Next is your fire and poison. Toxic fire with the poison projectiles with the basic attack for fire or the flame wall. So what this means is that once you use your projectiles for your Toxicologist Gauntlet with the toxic spray, the fire will become a poison fire, poison the enemies and also apply burn. In addition to that, that also goes for your flame walls as well. If you shoot your basic projectiles for your Toxicologist Gauntlet, which is your toxic spray, that also becomes a poison flame. Nothing really too special about that, it's just a simple combination. The next thing I do want to talk about is a really good one, which is the toxic clouds and also your fireball or your flame wall. Any sort of flame that touches a toxic cloud will create a very large explosion, dealing poison damage and initial explosion damage. I did use that on my first match that you saw recorded, and once I believe I threw the toxic cloud, I immediately exploded it, which killed the enemy. Next, we have the fire and lightning, and no combinations can be worked on that. I tried everything and nothing really happened. And then finally we have fire and wind. If you do use your wind's basic attack, which is the wind shear, it will extinguish all the fires, whether that be a flame wall or the fire that is left with your basic attacks. However, if you do use your tornadoes on those things, the flame walls, the flame on the floor, or even shoot at the tornado itself, not only would it extinguish the fire again, but it will create a flame tornado, sucking the enemies in the middle and also applying burn to them as well with the damage. And that is mainly it for the Pyromancer Gauntlet. So now we're going to be focusing on the Frostborn Gauntlets and the combination that can be made with it. Starting at number 1 with Frost and Stone. Using your basic ability on the Frost Trail will destroy it, but leaves a frost aura that slows and freezes enemies within the range. As simple as that. Obviously with your Frostborn Gauntlet, you gain the Frozen Alacrity. That just means that you leave a frozen trail, an ice trail. And using your Stone Gauntlet and using the basic attacks will leave a frost aura on the ground, which therefore means that any enemies that are in that frost aura is a very small aura. They will be slowed, and if they stay for too long, they will remain frozen for around 2 seconds. That just gives you a bit of an advantage just to hit them, but once you hit them, they will become immediately unfrozen. If you use your flash freeze and then you throw your boulder through the flash freeze, the boulder will become a frozen boulder that will charge on impact. Once it hit a surface or a person, initial damage on the person, and in addition to that, it creates another frost aura. Staying in that frost aura for too long will freeze you and slow you down. Next is the Frost and Fire. Even though you couldn't really make a combination with your Pyromancer as your primary gauntlet, you can make a small combination with your Frostborn as your primary gauntlet, and something really powerful with Tundra, which I'm going to explain right now. So shooting fire at the frost lanes on the floor causing a small non-harmful explosion, and it just creates a field of blindness essentially. Once you go in that, or enemies are in that, they can't see around them. I tried going in there to see if I could see the enemy, and there was literally almost no sign of the enemy, mainly because I was really close. I could kind of see, but once I was in that, I couldn't even see what I was looking at. So you can either use it to blind someone so you can get away, or if you can see them from above, maybe use that as a way for them to not understand where to go, and then you kill them. With this as well, which I'm going to be talking about, and also for other projectiles as well, if you have Tundra unlocked and you use your Flash Freeze, anyone with the Pyromancer Gauntlet, the primary one, can't shoot you in that Flash Freeze because it acts as a shield, and fire, it will basically extinguish the fire, so it can't shoot at you. I did try this and I realized how powerful it could be. You can use your Flash Freeze to essentially take a health potion, take a shield potion really quickly, and then come out and fight the person. Bearing in mind, if the person does go in there to try and kill you, they will be frozen and they can't attack, so you can kill them instead of them killing you. So your Flash Freeze can act as a shield, but only for 2 out of the 5 gauntlets, excluding the Frostborn, because obviously that can go through because it's frost and frost. But it only applies to Pyromancer, Conduit, and Tempest. The Toxicologist and the Stone Shaper can go through it. With the Toxicologist, I'm going to explain what happens. Stone Shaper is simple, you just go through it because you're attacking from the ground, not a projectile. Next I want to talk about is Frost and Poison. Shooting poison at the ground doesn't leave a puddle because it's not your primary gauntlet, unless it touches the icy trail, in which it replaces the ice trail to a poison trail instead, poison the enemies that touches it. Next, if you combine your Flash Freeze with your basic attack, it freezes the poison bolts. So it still penetrates it, but if it goes through the Flash Freeze, it freezes it instead, which is pretty cool as well if you want to combine frost with poison. Bit of frosty attacks and also poison attacks as well. And then finally, combining Toxic Clouds with any of your frost attacks, whether that be the Ice Lance or the Flash Freeze, it can either remove the Toxic Cloud and replace it with a Frost Cloud, slowing enemies, then eventually freezing them, or the Toxic Cloud becomes frozen. And I'm going to be talking about why that is the case, but I'm going to do that on the Toxicologist primary gauntlet rather than the Frostborn one because it's a lot easier for me to explain it. Next, with your Frost and Lightning, if you shoot your lightning bolts on the ground that has the icy trail, it will shock enemies that are standing on the icy trail, and you also hit them with the lightning. This will apply shock to them, and shock is a debuff that doesn't allow you to attack for 1 second. Not too overpowered, but it just means that they can't be attacked and they move in the obscured direction, so you can hit them for a bit of extra damage. Although you do have to bear in mind that, for example, if you remember me talking about the Frost and Stone, the stone will destroy the whole ice trail. Lightning doesn't affect the whole trail, it only affects a small portion of the trail, so it's not really too OP, but if you get close enough and you hit the ice trail where the enemies are standing, or let's say trying to run away from, you can shock them for that second. And next, I'm going to be again, same as the Pyromancer, using your Flash Freeze against Conduit. You cannot shoot through it. So again, as I said, it's really OP to use if you want to get away from someone. or just essentially defend yourself against someone that is trying to kill you, you don't have to worry about them hitting you unless they have the Stone Shaper or Toxicologist as their primary or secondary gauntlet. So remember that. If you do see someone with Tempest, Conduit or Pyromancer as either their primary or secondary gauntlet, or even both, use your Flash Freeze as a defense mechanism and also quite offensive, so they can't shoot you at all. Then finally, Frost and Air. Using basic attacks on the Frost Trail leaves a similar effect to the Stone with its basic attacks with the shockwaves, but you can't affect the whole trail. Again, you can't attack through the Flash Freeze with your basic attacks on the second gauntlet's basic attacks. So again, as I said, with the Conduit and Pyromancer, Flash Freeze does not allow you to attack through it. Next, we're going to be talking about Conduit, and I'm probably saying Conduit wrong, isn't it? Oh well. I'm going to say Lightning, the Lightning Gauntlet. And with this one, you do lose some combinations. So if you have this as your primary gauntlet, you lose the combination between Frost and Lightning, as you don't get the Frost Trail no more from the Frostborn Frozen Alacrity. Lightning and Toxic. Your Toxic Clouds becomes a lightning poison storm that creates a large explosion of lightning that hits enemies, and if you're at a range of that cloud, once it becomes a lightning cloud, it will track you down and actually shoot lightning at you, shocking you for 1 second so you can't attack. So if you're at range, it will essentially home in on you. This is the only attack that I know that homes on an enemy or even the ally itself. This is something that was completely new to me once I saw it, because I got a bit too close. It just literally attacked me. When it comes to abilities, you do have to be careful, because these abilities are not trained to not attack you. They will attack you. So let's bear that in mind when it comes to certain combinations. And then finally, the only combination you can combine, the Lightning and Wind. Combining any of your primary gauntlets basic attacks to a tornado makes it a Thunder Tornado, striking them and also pulling them to the center of the tornado. Make sure you stay away, because if you are too close to the tornado, it will pull you in as well, and you'll get dealt damage as well, and you don't want that. So with the Conduit, you do lose certain combinations. In addition to that, you can't really combine a lot with it, so you can't combine the Pyromancer and Conduit, the Stone Shaper with Conduit as well. Next is the Stone Shaper. You do lose some combinations from having this as the primary gauntlets, but it's just a few. You can still create a lane of fire, because with your Pyromancer as your gauntlet, no matter what it is, once you shoot the ground, it will leave a small flame that will burn enemies. So you can use your basic attacks to leave a trail of flames again. And as I said before, with your Frostborn and the Stone Shaper, Flash Freeze and the Boulder Fall will make the stone frozen, and it will have the same effect as before. There's no combination between the Poison and Stone, nor with the Lightning as before. And with the next one I'm going to be talking about, this one I've been trying for a few days right now, and I still don't know if it's 100% true, but I still need to try it out, and that is with the Stone Shaper and the Tempest. And the only combination that it has is the Tornado and the Boulder Fall. I've noticed that, I'm probably wrong here, but I've noticed that if you throw your Boulder Fall at a tornado, it temporarily increases the movement speed of the Boulder Fall, and then it goes back to its normal velocity, but after 1 second. Every time I throw my Tornado, I notice a difference in the projectile speed of it. It goes a lot faster, and then literally a second later, it goes back to normal. That is literally that I've noticed. I'm still trying it out. If you guys do know, let me know in the comments below, just makes my life a bit easier. Next is Tempest. Literally nothing new as Tempest, as if you notice with the skill levels, it doesn't give you anything that allows you to combine a lot. The only thing that's the same is the tornadoes. You can still create the poison, fire, and your lightning tornadoes as before. And you can also remove the flames on the ground and the toxic clouds with your basic attacks, or even with the tornado. Again, nothing too special. And then finally is the Toxicologist. Stone and poison. Your stone attacks can remove the toxic puddles from the ground, but that's the only thing, sadly. If you do have your Stone Shaper Gauntlet and you have someone that's putting toxic puddles on the floor, you can simply get rid of it with your basic attacks. Toxic and Flames, like before, nothing new. Toxic Flames and Explosion when clouds hit the flames, but the explosion is triple the size as before, as you now have 3 clouds instead of 1, with your skill level 4 having 2 extra clouds on your toxic clouds. Toxic and Frost, shooting your frost at the 3 clouds can either, as I said before, create a cloud of frost, slowing and freeze the enemies, or you can completely freeze the clouds. However, this is what I'm going to explain right now. If you freeze the clouds completely, or you see someone else do it, and you either have a frost gauntlet, a fire gauntlet, sorry, as your secondary arm, or there's one next to you, use the flame gauntlet, and if there's someone nearby it, shoot the frozen toxic clouds. It will surprise the enemies, because what it would do, it will literally explode the toxic clouds. The frost doesn't melt, so there's no frost aura. It just creates a poison explosion, damaging enemies and poisoning them as well. Toxic and Lightning. Puddles can become conductible, striking enemies in the puddle and applying shock to them for 1 second. Same as the other way around, Clouds and Lightning got triple the effect, as there's 3 clouds and all 3 clouds will home in on enemies, shooting lightning at them and again shocking them. And then finally, Wind and Poison. Wind can remove the clouds away and also make a poison tornado. In addition to that, which is something a bit extra because you now have viscosity, if you strike the poison puddles with your basic attacks with your wind shears, it will create a small poison cloud, hitting enemies within the range, and tornadoes can remove the toxic clouds and it becomes a poison tornado. So that is every single combination that can be made. This took a very long time and this video is probably really long. I'm going to try and cut it out. I mean, showing it down to its reasonable level. But that is the end of today's video. Hopefully this was really helpful for you guys to understand a bit more about gauntlets and the effect they can have on your actual gaming experience. Next, I will be talking about the talents and how and what each one does, which one is powerful, but that will require me to actually do some research because the talents do affect your ranking. So as you progress in the game, you will get more talents. So once you get to rank 6 on certain gauntlets, you will get certain talents for your mind, body and spirit. That's not overall ranking, you only get a ranking for each gauntlet. So your Pyromancer, your Toxicologist, your Stone Shaper, your Frostborn, your Tempest and your Conduit, you will get a rank for each one. That means you have to play every single talent and gain a rank up, and that will only apply if you have it in your primary, not your secondary, your primary only. But that is all I'm going to be saying. I'm going to be talking more about each one. We're going to talk about what you get first and what they mean, and then each one that you can get and how it looks like in matches. That is gonna take a few days because obviously I cannot get all of these yet. I have to play some games. And yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this, because I really enjoyed doing this. It's very detailed, yes, I understand, but it's something to help myself and you, because I did teach myself a lot from doing this. And yeah, have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye bye.